In Duties of the Heart, the Gate of Self-Accounting, page 719, the 15, number 15. In that book, that book I give you, right? Okay, so we're talking about contemplating one's longest journey and the provisions to be made. So he said, one should make a personal accounting regarding how he makes provisions for his subsistence in advance before he actually needs them, even though he does not know if he will live long enough to benefit from them. That's what you call investing, okay? Similarly, that would be also a hell.
Well, he's talking about if you live to an old age, if you're spending all your money that you come in,
right.
This is something that's never old philosophy, right? So he's saying put money away for when you're old enough, too old to work, so you'll have something to live on.
Right. That's even though he doesn't know he's going to make it. That's the point I'm putting. Even though he doesn't know he's going to make it. Now, if you don't know in the end what we're going to do,
you gotta put
so
it
but you put it. That's why I say it's like the retirement funds, or the old days of Social Security. When did they pay Social Security? At 65. When did he die? 66. So it worked out good for people.
That was the life expectancy back then. 66 per memory.
It worked out pretty well for people. So that's when it was a solvent situation. But then what happened was people start to live longer.
Yeah.
So when people start to live longer, that started to drain the accounts, because really the account is only based upon what the working people are putting into the account, not what you put into the account. You were paying forward. We pay forward. We pay for this generation, and then the next generation will pay for us. Well, we don't have enough people working, which is why it's becoming not solvent. But but that's really what it is. I'm putting away for the future. So if I'm relying upon Social Security or my 401k, people in Enron got killed. Remember Enron? They put their monies into there, and then that went down. Okay, so you got killed. But that's what I'm saying. He's saying you have to make provisions. So similarly, when he must set out on a long trip, he prepares the provisions for his trip days in advance. He finds out what merchandise is marketable in the place of his destination, what his means of transportation will be, what supplies he will be needing, with whom he will be traveling, and what kind of accommodations he will be lodging while on the road, and similar matters, without knowing what the Creator has foreordained for him in this regard, or how long he has to live. Okay, if you remember when you go on vacation, what happens in the old days? I don't know today. Today we have GPS. We don't need anything. But in the old days, your parents used to take out the map. They also used to get around the table and plot out. Or if they were really rich, they called up AAA to get a triptych.
Yeah.
You don't remember triptychs? So young.
AAA.
So young. AAA. Triptych is what you would call up if you would call. You remember triptychs? No.
Yeah, we used to get those.
Triptychs. Triptychs are, you used to call up AAA, and you tell them I'm going from point A to point B, and they would send you a flip book. Yeah. So you could go through the flip book, and you could see where to make the turns.
It was just each little section of your route, without showing the whole map. They sent you a whole big map too.
Right.
Each little section. It's like, just visualize. If you're using GPS on your phone, when you're traveling, just visualize it. Every so often, print that page out on the phone, and it's
right. And that would show you where you're going, and that would also be the restaurants. If they were advertising. So it's very. Here we got the triptych.
My parents used to do that.
That's what I'm saying. The parents used to do it. They used to get together, and then they would know where they're going to go. Today, you don't do any of that. Today, you just hit the road and go. And
GPS.
GPS, and even for hotels, for the most part, there's so many hotels. You don't kill yourself looking for hotels. Now, for us as kosher Jews, what do? We have to worry about the minyan. So that's what we have on our apps. We have GoDaven.com. That way you know where you're going to pray on the road, where they have the minyan, what time the minyan is going to be, so on and so forth. We have, what's it called? Kosher, it's called?
Kosher Near Me.
No, it's called Kosher GPS. Kosher
really?
GPS, I'm telling you, I didn't make that up. Kosher GPS, and that has all your restaurants. Any restaurants that you on your way, you can just, wherever you are, you say, kosher restaurant. If I have one in the area, and it's been registered, so they'll be there. So so if I come into South Bend, I don't know where it is, I say kosher food, they'll send me to Midwest Kosher in Delhi, and that's it. So it's a beautiful thing, right?
you know, look at a global map or just in the United States, see a lot of dots on the East Coast, a lot of dots on the West Coast, and not a lot in the middle.
Very few in the middle.
That's true too. Okay, so what?
It's the first thing that came up.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So in the same way, my brother, we must be ready for the appointed time and be prepared for the long journey to the other world, where one can neither escape nor avoid. We're all going to get there. That's the point. We must give thought to the provisions we should take with us, and with what we meet and what we should meet our Creator on the great day of reckoning, of which the Scripture says, "For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven." How can we neglect this duty when the journey is continuous, leading constantly from place to place, when the road is a long one and the resting place far away? Why have we not taken it to heart to remember our latter end? Why have we not thought about the provisions we should make for our final destination? We have concerned ourselves with a world that is transient and forsaken, one that is lasting, preoccupied ourselves with the ills of our bodies and forgotten the maladies of our minds, engaged in the service of our base instinct and forsaken the sake of our Creator. We have forsaken our own selfish desires and have not served our God. Now, again, you have to hear where he was coming from. He is trying to tell us that we are living in a world that is, in his day, they were living to probably 40, 50. I don't think they were living much past that either. Okay? And but people were invested in making money or doing whatever they're doing and not bettering themselves in their observance or their connection to God. And that's what he's trying to wake them up to say, you have a chance. Let's say you make it to 120, which would be an extremely long life in those days, even to this very day, be an extremely long life. And so, and what are you doing with that time? You're running up and climbing trees to make money? We all have to make money, there's no question. We have to bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan, as the old commercial used to go. But
bacon.
Kosher beef fry.
Bacon.
As long as you remember the commercial though? Okay. This is bacon, right? So we all have to bring the stuff home. You know, you have to do it. You can't just, I mean, if you're really, I shouldn't say you can't. If I really believe that God is going to do it all for me, and I really have such emunah and bitachon, I guess I could sit down and learn Torah just like the people in the desert, and God gave them man. It's very possible I could do it. But I don't think any of us are on that level to rely upon such things. And so I wouldn't suggest it, but if you can work on that, go for it. You know, if you can work on that sort of bitachon, that's fine. And you know, it would be great to see it. But I want you to know something. Even if you would do it and you would work out for you, and you would just tell people, all you have to do is what I'm doing, it wouldn't necessarily work for them even if they did it, because they have to have your same level of faith and trust in God that you have. That's how it worked in the desert. In the desert, it says that they got manna from heaven, right? So what happened was some people got to their doorstep, some people had to go out, and depending on what their faith was in Hashem and their trust, they would mean they have to go further and further and further out to get it. Okay. They'd have to work farther. Sorry?
I didn't know that. The more you didn't, the less you trusted, the further you had to look for the manna?
Yes. Yes. And that is a guide for our life. The more that we have trust in God and understand that everything is coming from God, that we don't have to work as hard because we're relying upon God, right? So then God says, okay, no problem. Boom, I pay you. And now you have plenty of time to learn. You have plenty of time to follow the Torah. If you're going to not trust me, you're going to think it's all my power. Well, go ahead and try. Go ahead. I'll let you try. I'll deal with you, and I'll get you what you need. Not necessarily what you want, but I'll get, you know, again, all these songs that came out. But I'll get you what you need, not what you want. And as compared to the guy who has total bitachon, well, whatever he wants is what God wants anyway. So I'm going to heap the gifts upon you because I want you to be happy too. The more, it's like I always say, the more we thank God for everything, the more we heap praise upon God, sincere praise. I'm not talking about the fake praise. I'm not talking about fake news. None of these fakes, okay? I want real praise. I want real acknowledgement. God says I want real stuff. So if the more we do that, the more God is going to give us, because God says, oh, you praised me for this? Okay, how about this? How about this? How about this? And sometimes the opposite. If I complain, God says, oh, you want to complain? Let me show you. It's the old joke about, the old statement that parents used to make. You're crying for nothing, but I can give you something to cry about. You know? So God says the same thing to us on both sides of that. So when we, one thing that parents really want is appreciation from their kids. Your parents,
Honest
I think.
appreciation.
What? Honest appreciation, right? Not the, Dad, you look so good today, when they're 16 or 17. Dad, you look so great. Yeah, okay, what do you want? Okay. I mean, I get a call on my cell phone, so if I see a New York number, I say, how, and I pick it up if I don't know it. So if they say, is this Fred? I said, how much is this going to cost me? I want to know. How much are you going to, which organization, how much you charge me? Okay. But, you know, it's like that. But if it's really, if they would call me up and say, you know, it's so nice, how are you doing? Oh, what's it going to cost me? No, nothing. This actually costs you nothing. I just want to find out how you're doing. Because you gave money. We want to keep a relationship with you. Oh, you know what? I'd be more willing to give them something more than a chai. You know, I would say, you know, I like you. You're very nice. You called me up. You appreciated me. You appreciate what I gave you. Instead of, is this Fred Nabel? How do you spell that? Twikenheim? Twiken. We're in South Bend, Indiana. That's what kills me when I say, we're South Bend, Indiana. Yeah. It's in Indiana? Is that one of our states? No, come on. Stop.
Well, they have Indians there. Oh,
right.
Definitely New York.
Yeah, they're the New Yorkers who've never left the Versailles Bridge, right?
Or all the way up in Arizona, don't you know?
I had somebody who called me in Bangor, Maine, because they wanted to know if the flood was still in what was the flood in Louisiana?
Katrina?
Yeah, where was Katrina? What did flood? New Orleans.
Yeah.
They called me up in Bangor, Maine, to know if there's services in New Orleans.
What?
And I said, you realize you're calling Maine?
Maine.
Yeah, no, so no other services. I said, it's a different state. It's on the other side. So I said, of course we had internet. So I said, wait a second. I went to the internet and I found out, yeah, there's a Chabad there.
Wow.
Blah, blah, blah. Well, I tried that and I couldn't get them. I said, you do know there was a flood there, right? Well, no, I didn't, but why didn't there services? I said, who are you calling from, lady? I want to know this. But I think she went, okay, M-N, realized that's how she did it. From Maine to New Orleans, so I can figure. Why are you calling me otherwise? But people don't know geography, that's just funny. Okay, but so now, alas for this confusion, how blind it is. Alas for this drunkenness, how strong it is. As it says in Scripture, in Isaiah, their eyes are plastered over so that they cannot see, and their minds so that they cannot think. They are drunk, but not with wine. They stagger, but not from strong drink. They're not. What he's trying to get across to us is you have to think about what's going to happen. You really have to plan for the future, namely when you die. You can't just be living in this world and say, eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow nothing's going to happen anyway, because it's in the end we all just die and get buried. No, there's a life after death. And we have to, and he's saying you have to understand that. Okay.
Sound like you can be talking about today.
Yes. That is the power of the Muslim movement. The power of the Muslim movement was that nothing's changed, sadly. And that we have to keep thinking about that. Most people...
It's 1,000 years ago you wrote this.
Approximately. Most people do not think about what's going on, what the future is, and maybe religiously, and this is a very sad statistic, most people, when they retire, do not have $100 to their name in their savings.
This morning.
Right. I read that so many times when I was looking through the entrepreneurship and all these other books, but Dave Ramsey, they're all saying the same thing. And I can't imagine they're all wrong. People who are in their 60s and 70s do not have $100 to their name, which means that, man, you did a bad job in your planning. You rely upon the government, whatever it was, and everybody knows Social Security you can't live on Social Security. Everybody knows that. And for some reason people...
You would think they know it.
No, everybody knows. Everybody's heard the horror stories. As a matter of fact, even in the 80s, when they had shows like Kojak or something like that. I think it was Kojak with the lollipop. That was Kojak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had things about old timers eating dog food.
Ah, yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had it. So we're talking about the 80s. I can't imagine that people didn't realize that was true. Okay, so you're not going to make money. You're making $15,000 a year on Social Security. You're not making money.
I remember when I was young, before I was even married, I was working already, and I saw a seminar advertised at one of the big stock brokerage firms in St. Louis was offering.
Right.
I'll go there and see what we're going to talk about. And basically, the guy says, look, he says, we have investments for you. Either you can invest with that. I don't care where you go to. He says, but you got to remember one thing from this seminar is if you save 10% of your take-home pages, 10% until you retire, you won't have a problem financially when you retire.
Correct.
And
Correct.
people won't do it.
Correct. Correct. As every entrepreneur will tell you, one very important thing: pay yourself first.
Ah,
That's just that, pay yourself first.
but you want
The others will
bigger
wait.
house, the bigger car. And you
What? Okay, that's the problem. Again, that's all the Dave Ramsey talk. But that's all his stuff. But one should. Other people say, buy the car. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, one should make an accounting. This is number 16. Okay, it's contemplating the approach of one's own death. So one should make an accounting with himself as to the length of his stay in this world, and observe the sudden death of other living beings, whether human or other forms of life. Consider the nearness of his own end, the approach of his own death. If you ever want to do this, all you have to do is work for the Chevra Kadisha, the people who bury people. Okay, because some people. You would think that death only hits the people who are 90 and 100. Well, sadly, people die at a younger age. I remember there was a person when I was in Maine. So it was a very sad story of a person who was jogging and everything else, good shape, wonderful shape, is in his 40s, well-beloved teacher, dropped dead from a brain aneurysm.
Wow.
All the working out didn't do any good, so I had a piece of cake on him. That's it. I heard that. I was eating cake. I said, okay, I'll have the cake. Forget the running. I don't need the running. I didn't know the guy had something to do with me, but life is very fragile. That's his point. Life is very fragile. You know what it's going to do. So you want to look around. If you ever want to be happy, go to a nursing home. You'll see what everybody's complaint is, and you'll realize what a great life I have. You ever want to think you're slim? Go to the mall. There's a place you can go and you can feel good about yourself, okay? Because you see people who are so out of shape, and you say, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I can fight this out." But so that's what he's saying. You have to observe these things. He should consider this when observing how death comes without having prior knowledge of it, without a hint. How at no given time is one secure from it. There is nothing to delay its coming in any month of the year, or any day of the month, or any hour of the day. It does not come only in old age, to the exclusion of middle age, young manhood, adolescence, childhood, and infancy. Rather, it can befall the living in any season, any time, and any place. So a person should think of himself. By the way, a kid never thinks of dying.
Oh.
And Baruch Hashem, they don't. Okay? Huh?
Nowadays.
Even then, nobody thinks of dying.
Oh, they didn't think of it, no.
No, nobody thinks of dying. Whether they die or not, they die. I'm not arguing people die. I'm saying kids never think of death. As a matter of fact, 30-year-olds don't think of death. 40-year-olds don't think of death. 50-year-olds start thinking. Or when they deal with death. In other words, if their parents go, that's when you start thinking of death, because you realize you're the next one. But the grandparents, no, that's normal. When your parents, or you, like I said, as my father used to say, one foot's on the banana peel. So, that's, sorry?
I like that one.
Yeah. So he said, you have to be careful. One foot's in the banana, but you have to be careful. Okay. So he says, a person should think of himself as if the king had placed a deposit in his charge without setting a date for its return, commanding him to expect him at any time. Join us. Okay, not to leave for another place, but to be present when the king should ask for him. Would it be conceivable for him to leave the king's place while the deposit is still in his charge? Would it? Okay. What do you say?
I sort of zoned out. What was the question?
It's right here.
Oh,
I was just reading his question. Okay. So he says, others draw the following analogy. Consider someone with an outstanding debt, with no specific time set for repayment. He must expect his creditor at any time. He'll have no peace of mind until he repays him. Can you imagine that? That's the worst sort of thing. That's the calls that you get on your telephone if you didn't pay your debt on time. And now you get called every other day by these people who are, we like to call the bottom feeders of the world, who bought the debt. What?
The IRS?
No, they also, I don't mind. They don't usually call you, they come with the cops. But you know, the people who come, who bought the debt, you know, what happened is Reuven didn't pay the debt. So the company calls it a loss and they sell that debt. And that's the bottom feeders. So those people now will barrage you with calls all hours of the day just to get you to where you're down, so you'll actually try to make a payment with them.
If they get anything more than they bought the debt for, then I guess.
Then they win.
So they'll beat you for that. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So one person, I remember I heard the story that they called one person and they said, you didn't pay, I'll use Sears, I don't know, Sears is, you didn't pay Sears, yeah, so you owe $300 on your, for your washing machine, whatever the thing was. And the person says, wait a second, is this Sears calling me? He said, no, this is blank. He said, ABC collection, whatever. So he said, oh, so let me understand. You bought my bad debt from Sears? So, well, yeah. He said, you're an idiot. I didn't pay Sears. Why would I pay you? I don't know. At least I owed Sears. I got something from them. I didn't pay them because I didn't have the money. But so that means you paid them. Thank you very much for paying my bill. Okay. But now I should pay you? You're an idiot. Enjoy calling me. I look forward to your calls every day. And hung up. The person never got it. Okay, you can have an actually, but it was, that's what they want to do. So imagine if the creditor can come anytime. Now it's the time is up. So now the time's up. I want my money. Okay, or in this case, God is a creditor. I'm taking you back home. Okay. When a person reckons with himself how long he has lived in this world and remembers that many of his friends have gone on before him to the next world, leaving when they had every expectation of remaining among the living, and he sees nothing superior in himself to deserve living longer than they did, he will then limit his worldly aspirations and aspire to his latter end. My father's example of one foot in the banana peel. Okay. He will give thought to the provisions he will need when he sets out on his journey, and he will reckon with himself before the day of reckoning. And that's very important, by the way. Once I start taking a self-accounting today, okay? So now if anything comes up and I realize I've done something wrong and I correct it so I don't get punished. Why is the only reason God's punishing me? Why is the only reason he afflicts me?
You didn't apologize.
Well, one, I didn't, right, but I broke the rule, right? So it's natural consequences. So what does every parent want? No parent wants to punish their child, unless you're abnormal. No parent wants to punish their child. Everybody wants to just play with their children and so on and so forth, have a good time. But what happens when the child does something wrong? You have to reprimand him or her. You have to do that, otherwise they're going to be wild animals. So you want to get them on the straight and narrow. So what do? We punish them one way or another, and then years later, if God willing, they'll thank us for what they did, and they'll realize that it was for their good. Okay? But if they wouldn't do anything wrong, we'd be the happiest parents in the world, right? The expression used to be, this hurts me this hurts me more than it hurts you. Of course, we all were like, yeah, no. But it does. Yeah. No normal parent, I will keep emphasizing, no normal parent wants to do that. So also God doesn't want to do that. So if I straighten myself out, Hashem doesn't have to punish me anymore. So I save myself Gehenna, which is only a cleansing. I don't have to go through that. It's great. So again, if I do my self-reflection and I realize what I've done wrong, so I'm doing God's job, as it were, for him. I'm doing myself. Hashem says, good job. Good job. Keep going. I like this. Okay. So one of the wise, by the way, the way to escape death, those who want to escape death, is to learn Torah 24/7. David HaMelech tried to do it. And don't get distracted when you hear a tree branch fall, something creak. Just keep studying Torah. Don't worry about it. That's it. Then you'll live forever. That's what you try. The Midrash says he asked the prophet when he was going to die, or somehow he got that, and they told him, "You're going to die." He said, "We can't tell you when you'll die." So he said, "How about the day I'm going to die? Just give me the day." So he said, "A Shabbos. You're going to die on Shabbos." So that's why he would take a 24-hour vigil on learning. And he would learn. So when the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, came, and he said he wanted to get him, he was learning Torah. He couldn't do anything. So he's escaping death. So he figures, what can I do? So he shook, there's an argument, he shook a branch, and that's when he looked up. He looked up. That's it. Or he tripped on something, whatever the case is. So I was thinking, I would have asked him why is he going outside to begin with? Just sit in your room and learn Torah all day. You know it's only one day.
That could work.
Right?
The Malach HaMavet's always going to get it.
Right. So now, one of the wise remarked, he who has placed death before him has improved himself. The wise one, again, Shlomo, said, the thoughts of the wise are in the house of mourning. I'm going to a Shiva house. I'm remembering where I'm going to be, where I could end up, where everybody ends up. Okay? So that wakes me. Better, and here is a famous, one of the other famous lines, better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For that in the end, if that is the end of every man, let the living then meditate in his heart. The living refers to the one whose heart is alive. That is one who has understanding and insight. It says further, man is like breath. Okay? That's one of the ways, that's the 16th way of taking a cheshbon nefesh. Again, taking the counting of yourself. So all these, whatever talk, by the way, it could use all the methodologies or it could use one. Whatever talks to you to make you do teshuvah is what you're looking for. So he's giving you a whole bunch of methodologies. Now he says the virtues of the solitude and the ill effects of associating with fools. So when a person's soul longs for the company and camaraderie of other people, he should reflect on the virtues of solitude and separation for others, and on the ill effect of associating with fools when this is not absolutely necessary. Fools are people who, fools are fools, but they are the people who are rejecting of God. That's really where he's going with them. Among the ill effects of companionship with them is needless talk. He said, and it has been said, and other long-winded superfluous babbling. The wise one, Shlomo, said, where there is too much talk, mistakes are not lacking. But he who restrains his lips is prudent. A sage once said, withhold your extraneous words and muzzle your extraneous speech. What happens if I keep my mouth shut? I can't speak Lashon Hara. Okay, let's understand that. Further ill effects are gossip, slander, and deprecation. Scripture says of one with such habits, you sit and slander your brother, you malign the son of your mother. And I always like getting into this really quickly. When you slander somebody else, whether it's true or false, they are the recipients of your benevolence. Because what you have done is taken all of their sins, taken them upon yourself. You have given them all of your merits that you have built up, and you give it to them. So they are very happy. I always tell people, when somebody insults you, don't go for the zinger. Just smile and say, is that the best you can do? Just take it on. A husband, there's a story that Rabbi Arush tells in his book, Garden of something, one of the gardens, Garden of Peace, whatever. And so he says that a husband was constantly belittling the wife, and she got, it wasn't a religious woman, but she got hold of the Book of Amunah. That's what he was selling books at that point, the Garden of Amunah. So, and she started to read and realized everything was from God. And she said, "What's going?" And so she called the rabbi up. "What's going on? My husband insulted me," and he said, "Just thank God for it. Thank God for the insults." Because all for you're getting closer to God. You talk to God and say, thank you, because without this, I wouldn't have talked to you. It's great. And she starts to feel good about herself. She's realizing how good this is. The relationship with God is tremendous. And so the husband would insult her, and she would start smiling. And she wasn't upset anymore. So the husband said, whoa. what's going on? Why are you smiling suddenly? You're just happier. What's happening? She said, well, I read this book, Art of Emunah, and I realized that when you're insulting me, you're cleansing me from my sins, and you're getting my sins. So, so I should be upset. He said, well, no. I'm not going to be Hashem's whipping. I'm not going to whip Hashem. I'm not going to whip you on God's behalf. And he started to be a better husband and stopped insulting her. And of course, the end of the story is that they had a good life after that. So it all turns out well. But that is definitely, if you really dislike somebody, you never speak Lashon Hara against them. You just don't say anything. The expression used to be, if you have nothing good to say, you say nothing.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to do it. Okay? But otherwise, just remember that. You give all of your merits to them, and they get all of your sins. And all the sins come to you. So when you go up to the next world and you're in front of that court and they start naming off all your sins, and you say, oh, I didn't do that. You remember that Lashon Hara you spoke? Yeah, well, congratulations. That's yours. Further ill effects are falsehood and lies. And of this it says, falsehood is in its midst. I give heed and listened, they speak untruth. Further ill effects are false and trivial oaths, of which the Creator has said, God will not allow it to go unpunished. A pious man once said to his disciples, the Torah has permitted us to swear truthfully in Hashem's name, but I advise you not to swear by His name at all, either truthfully or falsely. Just say, it is not so, it is so, or it is not so. Again, according to my father used to say, if you have to swear, you're a liar. That's how he held. If you should have to swear, either I believe you or I won't believe you. But don't swear. You never swear to people. You never use God's name. Forget it. Okay. Without knowing, he knew Musar. That was the most amazing thing. That my father and mother would know without knowing the sources. Further ill effects of associating with fools are arrogance and scorn, ridiculing part of those who are present and scoffing with them. I have devoted one of the gates of this book to countering such traits, the gate of humility. By the way, what he's talking about is if I'm with fools who are speaking Lashon Hara and so on and so forth, and I continue to listen, I'm guilty of that too. I'm guilty of receiving Lashon Hara. So almost Yishemra, again, lies or truths, whatever it's going to be. And I'm considered part and parcel of that sin. So that's why you don't want to be with people who are going to bring you down, physically and spiritually. You just want to get away from that crowd. So it's just never good. Among the ill effects of their company is Bill, just to make the point home. Bill, one of the people who is usually here, he was a school teacher, retired since. He would go to the lunchroom. Now, in the lunchroom, the school lunchroom, he would always say, he's not Jewish. He's a Greek Orthodox. And when he started taking my courses, he usually Hebrew terms from. So he said in the school lunchrooms, it was just a whole bunch of Lashon Hara going on. Wow. They would be negative about this student. This student is an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And it was very negative talk, and he never liked it. So so for lunch, he would always walk out and take a walk around the building in order to avoid all that stuff. And he never understood why. When he took the course, he actually, we were learning, I think you were in that course. I think you were there by the time we listened. I forget who was here with Lashon Hara. But when I gave that course on Lashon Hara, he loved it. He said, this is what this is the truth. This is what, they should read this in the lunchroom. But if you go to a lunchroom or many places where people are starting to speak Lashon Hara, the response is, walk away. Don't stick around. Among the ill effects of their company is also the absence of the fear of God in one's heart when mingling with people and talking with them, coupled with the near impossibility of escaping monetary loss at their hands and becoming the object of their slander. Further ill effects are occurring favor and love of fame, being proud before others and arrogant, and wishing to appear great in their eyes with respect to one who knows and does not know of various fields of knowledge and deeds. Another consequence of their company is the obligation to enjoin right conduct and warn against evil. as we were commanded by the Creator when He said, "You must reprove your fellow." Go ahead, try to tell somebody you shouldn't speak slander. They'll say it's not slander. You know what I'm saying? This is the truth. That's how they get away with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't do that. Or if somebody is, I'll get another one. People like to use foul language. I'll leave it like that. You fill in the term that you consider foul. But people like to use foul language. If you say, and I've done this to people, I said, you know, there's a lot of words in English. Why don't you try to use them?
Oh.
And they look at me. They have to use a foul word on me at that point. But then I say, you know what? Again, you're an educated person. You don't need that word. It doesn't make the case. Comedians like to use foul language as shock, and it's disgusting. You can be a clean comic. You can speak without using the foul language and get the same point across. You can be refined, and people don't do that. People want the shock value. Watch any movie today, and there's shock value after shock value after shock value, so much that we're not shocked anymore.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what was it, just gratuitous? You just had to throw that in? There was no reason for it. Absolutely no reason. Sometimes there is a reason. If you want to make an impact, I hear it. But not every other word. That doesn't make it. Sorry. Okay, so we are obligated to object to evil in three ways. One, by striking with the hand. I don't advise this, as Pinchas did in the incident of Zimri and Cosby. By the way, nobody advises this. Pinchas did it, and if he had waited 1 second more, he would have been guilty of murder. So it wouldn't have been good. You don't want to be a zealot and cause this to happen. It's best not to fight or to strike with the hand, but okay, fine. Number two, by objecting in words. That's better, as Moshe, our master, did when he said to the wrongdoer, that was the one Jew about to hit the other Jew, "Why are you striking your fellow?" And number three, by objecting in one's heart, as David, peace be upon him, said, "I hate a crowd of evildoers and will not sit with the wicked." Okay? Again, the best way is to walk away. If your reproof is not going to work, you should try a little bit, but if it doesn't work, you walk away. If one can intercede with force and does not do so, he is delinquent. If he cannot intercede with force, he should object verbally. If he cannot object verbally, he should object in his heart. Thus, we are bound to object to evildoers under all circumstances, as the uneducated inevitably fall short of fulfilling their duty. When you are alone, however, you are undoubtedly excused from the duty to enjoin good and warn against evil, which is a difficult duty to fulfill and discharge. As our sages of blessed memory said, I doubt if there's anyone in this generation who can accept reproof. I doubt if there's anyone in this generation who knows how to reprove. How do you reprove somebody? How do you tell somebody off?
You're supposed to first tell them that something good about themselves, like speak to them gently and encourage them, and then point out that there was a better way of doing something.
Gently. The point is gently doing it. What?
A sandwich. Like report card comments.
Right. Report card cards. You can't use the word "but" when you're trying to help somebody out.
Something nice, something they need to work on, something nice.
Right. But that's what you're supposed to do. Now, most people don't know how to reprove. Most people, when you want to correct somebody, you just correct them. And there's no beginning and no end to that. So that's why he says most people can't accept that. Nobody likes to be criticized. That's why criticize is a negative word. Okay, even though there's positive criticism, but people don't like it. You're criticizing me. Okay, I'm criticizing you. Wake up and smell the coffee. But it's nobody likes it.
So I remember. I think it was, read Dale Carnegie years and years, decades ago. He talks about this. He had this intuitive knowledge too. Right. He says if you see somebody's doing wrong, try to get them to realize it themselves.
Correct.
You
Correct.
lead them.
Right. If you can lead them to realizing that, fine. But otherwise, it's really dangerous to reprove them, because when you tell somebody off, the odds are, one, they're going to rebel against you more, and they're going to continue to do it, or they'll just get worse. So that's why you have to be very careful with that. Further ill effects of their company and friendship are the corruption of good judgment, the weakening of intellectual perception, and the strengthening of base instinct. And one acquires their negative traits, as a wise one said, he who befriends fools will become base. For this, why? Because you're at their level, so they're going to bring you down. So you just get used to that. Okay. For this reason, our masters of blessed memory said, "Children's talk and sitting in the assembly places of ignorance drive a person out of this world." In short, most transgressions, in order to be committed, require at least two people, such as fornication, unethical business dealings, perjury, and false testimony. And all transgressions in speech are committed only when associating and mingling with other people. Learning how to speak is very important. Okay, there's a lot of books of Chafetz Chaim. All these in English, they have, what's it called in English? Guard your tongue. Thank you. Guard your tongue. I think that's what it's actually called. So those books are very important for people to learn and to continue to learn, so you know what is Lashon Hara, what is not Lashon Hara. When a person calls up about a date, I had I remember somebody was looking for a shidduch, and so they called me up. It must have been a date. So somebody must have put me down as one of their what's it called? References. Thank you. And so the person calling me said, "So what can you tell me about the person?" I said, "What do you want to know?" "Well, what can you tell me?" I said, "He's a wonderful person." Next question. They said, "So you can tell me?" I said, "You asked a wide open question. You're asking me for Lashon Hara. So unless you can be very specific on what you want to know, I'm not saying anything. Ask specifically what you want. Tell me what you want. I'll answer the question honestly. But ask the question. I just want to know." "Okay, he's a great person. Good luck. Have a good day." That's it. You have to know what you can ask, what you can say, and so on and so forth. It's very important. So solitude and separation from others, save one from all the transgressions we have mentioned, and are among the strongest factors in the development of positive character traits. It has been said that the mainstay of purity of heart is the love of solitude and a preference for isolation. Therefore, beware, my brother, lest your evil inclination deceive you and make socializing and mingling with people seem attractive to you. Lest it tempt you when you are alone and secluded to yearn for their company. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be with people. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be with people. It means that you don't, just because you're lonely, don't go to the local bar and have a good time.
He's saying, in other words, I was just going to ask, he's saying don't unnecessarily go out and do something for just because, like, this is bowling alley and hang around.
Right. You don't want to do that.
When you go out you got to do your work, and you go to your normal classes and learning, whatever. But just okay, so
right.
He's not saying solitude permanently.
Correct. What he's saying is don't go because you're bored. If you go to a place because you're bored, you're going to end up in trouble. So, by the way, if you're bored, make sure you come to the Midrash Torah Center. Learn some Torah. That's right, okay. But really, that's what it is. You go to a place where people are learning, where they're engaged in bettering themselves. If you do that, then you're going to improve yourself and improve your relationship with God. So, and that would be what he wants. So take care also not to be misled by the notion that association with the wise who know Hashem and his Torah, and mingling with outstanding personalities entail negation of solitude. That's what we're just saying. A renunciation of the virtues of isolation. On the contrary, these constitute the very essence of solitude and isolation. And the virtues of association with devotees of loving kindness and religion are many, above and beyond those of isolation, and too numerous to recount. So that's what I was just saying. The wise one said, "He who seeks out the wise will become wise, but he who befriends fools will become base. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise." And again, if one who does not associate with devotees of loving kindness, he said, "A scoffer dislikes being rebuked. He will not go to the wise." So you have to be willing to be corrected. Okay, our sages of blessed memory said, assembly of the wicked is bad for them and bad for the world, but of the righteous is good for them and good for the world. Dispersal of the wicked is good for them and good for the world, but of the righteous, dispersal is bad for them and bad for the world. Let your house be a meeting place for the sages. Dust yourself with the dust of their feet, and thirstily drink in their words. And this is also something we have to talk about. When people come into your, okay, still 5 minutes ago. When people have scholars rabbinic scholars in the house, many times they don't, or they're in town, okay? Sometimes you have scholars in residence, and we decided we don't need them. Okay, we'll stay home. I don't want to go out, it's too late, and so on and so forth. But that is your opportunity to drink their words with thirst. If I have somebody that's coming in, especially to speak words of Torah, so then I shouldn't just go to the lecture and be just one of the crowd. I should want to go to the lecture and to listen to everything that's being said. What happens is, Baruch Hashem, we have our little trusty iPhones, and whether on the data or they're on the internet, whether on, Wi-Fi, we also have games on our telephone. Or when somebody's talking, we suddenly go like this. Boom, we're bored, okay, boom, boom, boom. and when the guy's speaking over, and we don't really care because we're playing whatever we're playing. Okay. So that's what he's saying. No, when you go thirstily drink in their words. As it is said, then those who feared Hashem talked together, God listened and heard. And we'll have to stop there.
Wow.